Hey everyone, it's CurlyHairedHero and welcome back to Jump Ultimate Stars. We've already completed the first 3 galaxies, the Fighter, Adventure, and Demonic galaxies, and we're going to try and go into Planet Wrestle. So as you can see here, we're actually going to go into the Kinnikuman or Kinnikuman planet here, which is obviously from the series Kinnikuman or Kinnikuman. I have also a new deck here, which I'm using Zoro, Eve, and I think that's it in terms of fighting characters. But I'm actually going to end up changing up my deck after this match. You'll see why. But yeah, I didn't really look too much into Kinnikuman, just because like the way this series has been working out has been kind of funky. Because I started it out where I just kind of want to play this game because I really like it. Then afterwards, I tried to make it a little bit more dynamic, or not dynamic. I guess interesting, or you know, I try to make it less average, right? So I started that I was just gonna play the game, have it in the background, and talk about the series as much as possible. But then turns out that I'm not really that good at that, and that I don't really, given the way that I'm producing these, the time, I don't exactly have the time to sort of research in depth for all of these. I mean, the only times I really did that was for like Black Cat, but that took quite a lot of time for something that I'm not trying to take as seriously. So now I'm gonna, if I can, I'll try and read the first series of the manga, and then from there on out I'll just kind of wing it, because it's not really, it doesn't need to be that serious, basically. But yeah, I'm gonna end up changing my deck just because Kinnikuman is a bit tough, just because he's the only character who's kind of buffed up a lot, and he's like a 6 coma or something like that. So I'm actually gonna get one of my more favorite series' main character, Gintoki, to be one of my playable character. The reason I'm doing this is just because Gin is a laughter character, so he has the rock paper scissors advantage over Kinnikuman, so it should be pretty easy to get the remaining requirements. At the time, I also thought that, you know, I was gonna be able to keep using the deck, but as you can see in the later 2 missions, that's not gonna be the case. But yeah, I did actually read the first the first chapter of Kinnikuman, and it was pretty interesting, because it was kind of different from what I thought it was, because I thought it was just sort of like a wrestling parody anime, so I figured, or series, so I figured it was sort of kind of episodic, and it would just do the whole, I just thought it was like anime wrestling. But it's not necessarily that. It does have a sort of weird intergalactic plot, which is really weird. It also starts out pretty interestingly. It starts out pretty sort of unextraordinary. Like, there's not really much to mention about the first chapter. It's just there's these sort of space aliens that are coming to Earth, and then I don't know, the government or someone in Japan is like, oh shit, we gotta get someone to take care of this. I guess the defense force. And they, you know, they call up like American superheroes, and like they try to get like Ultraman and all that stuff, but they're all busy. So like, alright, let's just call this random ass shitty superhero who was always getting his ass kicked. And then he comes in, and you know, that's kind of how it starts off. But then later on, reading the wiki, it turns out that he's actually like the descendant of like some planet. He's like the prince, he's basically Vegeta of this planet, and in order to sort of regain his throne, he has to compete in a tournament, which is why you can see here they have this background, which is following a tournament structure. So that's really interesting. I'm probably still gonna end up reading it eventually. I keep going on and off. Like, I'll download all of it, and now I'm just like, I don't want to bother. So we'll see what happens. But as you can see here, this is one of my more favorite sort of scenarios in this game, because they make you use a custom deck, which is whatever, but they also make it so that you're in last place basically, against 3 other combatants, and you only have yourself and you gotta win as many points as possible to get yourself all the way to the top. It's very nice. It's also very wrestling-like, because, you know, usually a lot of the times most of wrestling is based on the fact of one guy getting his ass beat and then coming back, going through hell, and then still managing to win. It's very it's that just happens a lot. It's very guilty of doing that very often. But that being said, it's also pretty funny that I'm doing this today because I'm actually going to a wrestling house show later today. So it's pretty fitting that I ended up doing this today. But yeah, aside from that, there's not really much else that I can say about Kinnikuman. He, or rather the artist or the creator, I don't know if, because, you know, some series they have like someone that draws and then someone that does the story, and in some series they have both. Like, both of these are just one person, I should say. So I don't know, but basically the creator took a lot of parodied a lot of different wrestlers that actually exist, which is really cool. I don't know if they made it into the series, the manga series. They probably did, but I know they were definitely in the anime, because I know I saw some video where they discussed it. I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. But yeah, like I said, aside from that, there's not really much else that I know about this series. I know I saw it on TV a couple of times. Excuse me. And I didn't really care much for it just because I thought the main character looked really dumb and ugly. And at the time, I also didn't really give a shit about wrestling. Fun fact, my first wrestling show or match that I ever saw was actually Brock Lesnar versus some guy with one leg. Which was really weird. I just tuned in, I'm pretty sure it was SmackDown. Tuned in on an episode of SmackDown sometime in like 2004, maybe 2002, maybe one of those years. Yeah, between 2002 and 2006. Between like 2002 and like between 2000 and 2004, sometime before high school. I'm pretty sure I did this. I was staying at my grandma's house because my mom was working. And she had this like tiny TV. She had, you know, normal TVs, but she also had this like portable TV that had like a giant antenna, and it was like in black and white only, but it was portable. So I thought that was really cool. So I would take that and watch my shows. The only thing that it was in black and white, which was ironic because at the time I didn't really care much. When I'm picturing it now, I'm picturing it all in color, but I know that the TV was black and white, which is a really weird thing to think about. But yeah, I ended up watching that because I was just tuning to the channels and there wasn't really much to do. So I was just tuning to the channels and it was that. I was like, oh, this is wrestling things all the guys at school were talking about. Let me give it a shot. And unfortunately, it happened to be that. And it's just this giant brawler guy just beating up this poor defenseless guy that, you know, only has one leg. It's just really, I was just like, wow, what the fuck? And then I just never started watching it again. Until later on in high school, I met one of my best friends, and he introduced me to it mainly through the video games, which he liked really playing. He liked watching the series or the show on TV as well, but he mainly played the video games a lot as well. So we ended up playing that a lot because we'd play all the video games. So I figured, fuck it. And then, you know, I got hooked to the games, and then eventually I got hooked to the actual, TV content. So that's a very interesting way of how I got myself into wrestling. But that's why I always thought that I would like this series a lot, because like I said earlier, I thought it was a sort of anime wrestling, so I figured it would follow that format of, you know, wrestling where it's, you know, promos and all this stuff, and it would fight, you know, and, you know, there's all these different stakes and there's drama and stuff. Like, I figured that would be perfect for a manga or an anime. Maybe not, probably more a manga. I figured it just would be, you know, perfect. Like, I don't know how it hasn't happened, especially seeing how, as far as I know, Japan is pretty good with wrestling. I don't know how to exactly phrase this. They're not like, you know, some countries where wrestling is kind of like whatever, but wrestling is pretty big in Japan. Maybe not the biggest thing, but it's pretty big. So I thought, you know, that would have happened by now. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't really looked and found the right series that embodies what I'm thinking about. Because I've seen a couple of other, or read a couple of other wrestling mangas, and they were that. they were sort of wrestling, and you would do the whole normal format as if it were a wrestling show, like an American show, or it doesn't have to be American actually. Any sort of live action wrestling show could follow that format. The only issue with that is that it was satire, so it was kind of just comical. It was also kind of ecchi, so it was kind of just boobs. So I haven't found like an actual serious wrestling series that's actually about, you know, that's episodic, that's like actual wrestling. I don't know. Like I said, maybe I just really need to look for it, but I just feel like that's just gold. Like, that's just so easy to get, like, you know, 1,000 series out of, or chapters I should say, not series, 1,000 chapters out of. I mean, it's kind of how Hajime no Ippo has, you know, 1,000 or 1,200 something chapters, and it's because it's a boxing manga. It follows the same sort of structure that a series about wrestling would, because, you know, there's the build up to the match, and then you have the match, and then, you know, the afterfall or the aftermath of the match, and then you just keep doing that over and over and over and over again, and you have different characters to do that with. So it's not like that's a foreign sort of thing. It has happened and it can happen, but I don't know. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. Maybe I need to, like, do it myself. Start my own shitty webcomic or something. But I mean, I've always wanted to do something like that, because I spend a lot of time doing in the wrestling games. I would mainly just play them for the customization, right? And then I would make my own wrestlers, and I would try and have them sort of play out their own storylines in my head and stuff. And I always wanted to do something like that on YouTube, but there's no real easy way to do that. So maybe eventually I'll figure something out. But yeah, we can see here we're doing the last mission here. Once again, we're using a custom deck. We have to get this golden mask that's there, and then just stay away. It's very similar to a lot of missions that we've done before. Speaking of which, I'm also going to try and change up the format from now on. I was alluding to this in the beginning, since, you know, I don't want to take it too serious. I'm going to go back to the original purpose of this game, was just to play it and to just have fun with it, and, you know, talk about the series in between. But I won't make talking about the series like the number one thing, the only thing that happens, to the point where I have to, like, look it up and then stress and all this other shit. I'll try to do it. I'll try to do it live. I didn't do it live because the game would lag whenever I try to record and play it at the same time, so we'll see what happens. But either way, we actually unlocked the, well, maybe not the final for this sort of universe here, but we have a boss planet here, which we'll take on next time. Stay fresh.
Well done.